Hey, everybody, welcome into Talking Tactics with Coach Gough, the uncut, unedited version of the show that we are just going to continue rolling on out here until we find a new producer. If you happen to be into audio editing, maybe a little video editing, and if you want to be part of our little crew here, get in touch with me. But until then, just get Justin and I uncut and with very minimal editing. FC Cincinnati rolled into the Hell is Real Derby this past weekend on the back of a resounding 4-1 win over Montreal, and buoyed by the return of Lucho Acosta to the starting lineup. However, knowing they were facing one of the best attacks in the league without Ian Murphy or Miles Robinson, who were both suspended due to yellow card accumulation, fans, including myself, were very nervous. Against all odds, or at least the ones I had in my head, the FCC defense were the standout performers on the night, earning a clean sheet. The offense, by contrast, couldn't muster hardly anything, and the team settled for a 0-0 draw. We're going to talk about whether the FCC defense was that good or if they just got a bit lucky, why the FCC attack couldn't click, and much more. And we're going to talk it all over with the one and only Justin Hoyte. Justin, how you doing today, my friend?
Great, Coach. 1-0. Great. Other than, for me, Coach, I'll be honest, I'm great, but disappointed in the game. I had to put that one in there. Disappointed in the game.
Yeah, listeners, the 1-0 reference is a reference to the North London Derby. This is what my lights think of you, Justin. Once again, sitting here in the dark. I don't know why I can't figure this out.
Lights out after that. No, for me, Coach, I stayed up late to watch the game, and I'm just entertaining games. I just wish I would have watched that the next day, but I guess we'll take a point. As long as we didn't lose the game to Columbus, I'm happy. We got a point, but I guess we'll talk about majority of the game on the show and hear what the listeners think. But all in all, other than the game, Coach, I'm great. How was the game in person, and how were you, Coach? How are you doing?
The game was pretty exciting in person, actually, overall. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting game. It was 0-0, but the environment was cracking. It was pretty fun to be there. I got to take my sister, who doesn't get to go with me all that often, so that was a really good time.
That's great.
But Justin, I think what everybody really wants to know here is how jealous are you that Manu Ledesma, your boy, got to go pull out the sword on his own, well, with his kids, but he got to pull it out, whereas FCC saddled you with this crew of nobodies like Chad Ocho something or whatever that you had to walk out with and pull the sword.
No, I'm all right. Do you know what it's, Coach? As long as I get to be part of the team, be pulling the sword, whoever it's with, whatever time, if they ever ask me again, I'm always available. I was just happy to be in Cincinnati, happy to see the stadium for the first time. I didn't care who I was walking out with. But no, I mean, I'm happy for Ledesma. For Manu, he's a great guy. I'm happy for him and his family. It's great. He's back working with the club. So it's great. But yeah, I would have liked to have done it by myself, but I guess, I'm not much of a hype man myself. So I'm glad I've done it with a few of the other teammates from the Natty team. But maybe next time, Coach, we'll see. It's a long season. We'll get next season after that. You never know.
Yeah, well, once they get you on the coaching staff, like Manu, then we're gonna have to definitely have you pull it out on you. All right, Justin. Let's get to breaking down the game. But first, I want to let everybody know that we are sponsored once again by Apollo Home. Make sure you give them a call if you have any HVAC, plumbing, or electrical needs. And before you do that, and while you have your phone out, please head on over to the socials and give us a follow. I am at FC Cincy Tac Talk. He is at Justin Hoyte 32. And as always, you can drop us a note at Cincy Soccer Talk or in the electronic mail slots, feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. All right, Justin, let's get right to it. Mike Prentice wrote in and said pressing. He wants us to talk about pressing and how a back line of two right wing backs, a winger, a forward, and one center back largely bottled up one of the best attacks in the league. Joe Braun and Bill Baleo want to know, was it actually good defense or just good luck? So, Justin, let's talk about what FCC did defensively and how it was or wasn't successful. The first thing I want to know is when you saw a lineup that featured just one center back, how were you feeling about the match? Because I got to be honest, I was throwing like big numbers out in terms of how bad I thought we might lose.
Really? No, I didn't. The way I say I didn't is because they're experienced players that, it's not their natural positions, but they've now played there in however many games now. They've got the speed, they've got the defensive nous and the 1v1 duels. So I didn't think we'll get beat. I still felt the team was solid. So no, I would say that was probably our best back three that was available at the time. We brought in new players also, but I don't think they're ready. But I say for the back three, I would say they've played there on a number of occasions now. So I feel that was a steady-ish lineup.
Well, you turned out to be right, at least righter than I was. The interesting thing that I thought, I just thought the Columbus fluid front three, you have Rossi, you have Cucho Hernandez, you have Matan coming in from midfield. You just have so many good players out there. I thought that they would just twist that back line and not as FC Cincinnati chased. But what Pat Noonan got right is when you have, wingers out there playing wing back and wing backs out there playing center back, what you can do is you can really get on the front foot because you have guys that can run. And that's what Pat got right. FCC just got really aggressive in their press. And with all three lines, Justin, we always see the forwards press. Typically, you have like Lucho lead that up the middle. The other two fill in. Obi and Buka sometimes will press, sometimes will sit back. But Obi and Buka got really high on Nagbe and Matan and didn't let them have any time. And then Pau and Cheeto and Yedlin got really aggressive, tracking those crew forwards as they dropped into the space in between the midfield, their midfield and our back line, trying to make sure that this is happening. Justin, what did you make of the FCC press and how aggressive they were?
I feel like a team like Columbus, I feel like you have to be. I felt like, especially in this game, I thought they paid particular attention to Nagbe because knowing how Columbus like to play, they like to play through Nagbe. If you give them too much time and space on the ball, they can create things out of nothing. And I felt that the press was really, really well. They handled their players, for the majority of the game really, really well. And I thought the press worked. They didn't press 100 miles an hour. I felt like they pressed on cues, and when they did, they got it right. Okay, once or twice they didn't, but that's going to happen in games. But I was happy with the way, with you looking at the lineup. I would say you'll be happy with that press, especially against a team like Columbus.
Yeah,
how did you see it as a coach?
Well, that's exactly it. I think it wasn't just like a full out press and where you could get beat over the top, but they were just getting good, quick pressure on players while they were receiving it. So it wasn't always, I'm going to track Cucho into midfield and not let him receive the ball, because then if he spins off and runs behind you, you're chasing. It was, I'm going to track him and be close enough to where when he receives the ball, I can close on him immediately. Like there's a moment right at the 13-minute mark where the crew actually beat that initial pressure with a pass into Cucho, who is checking. But Yedlin is right on his heels, and Obi is turning around from in front of him and kind of back pressuring him from the front. So he's forced just to lay it off to Matan underneath him. And you see Obi and Buka and even Lucho sprinting to swarm that ball, suffocating in the midfield. And that forces it back to Nagbe, and then eventually all the way back to the center back, Rudy Camacho. And then Camacho beats the initial press again with a pass into Matan, that front line, and he shifts it to Cucho again, who at this point is all the way back at the edge of his defensive third because he just had to keep coming deeper and deeper. And he tries to turn and play it behind the back line, but Cheeto is right there to close on him and blocks that pass and ends up forcing Crew into just keeping the ball or kicking it out of bounds or kicking it long. In fact, Justin, they forced Columbus Crew into 71 long pass attempts on the night, and the team averages under 61. So that aggressive tactic seemed to work for them. But like you said, we also saw some nervy moments. So my question for you, because you've been out there, you've played teams like the Columbus Crew that are really talented and almost kind of expected to score in each and every match. As a player, would you rather be part of a back line where your coach is like, listen, Justin, guys, get out on the front foot, get super aggressive, track your runners into midfield, and step high and suffocate, press? or when you're playing a team that is that good, like the Columbus Crew, or you're more like, no, let's sit off, let's try to contain, let's bend but don't break, let them have the ball. What is your preferred style of play?
I would say my preferred style, especially if you're playing a team like Columbus, I'd like to press and go after them, and make them play longer. I think we've played when I played against Red Bulls, and it was similar to we would like to play with the ball, and they wanted to press, 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 and it's horrible to play against. So I feel like I would be like a type of manager or a player who would be like, right, let a team who likes to play football, likes to try and play intricate passes, try and get the ball forward. If you try and press them, cut off all the passing lanes, make them play long, we've got the players to deal with that. We've got the speed in behind. We've got the players who can deal with it aerially when the ball's in the air. So I'll be definitely pressing, coach. Definitely. So I was happy with what I saw for the majority of the game. Just one or two instances they got through, but that's expected. When you're playing such a high press and you're pressing all out, it's expected they're going to get chances, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about those chances, because it looked to me like FCC pressed really successfully the whole match. But when Crew had success, it was picking on that left side of the FCC defense with Kubo and
The
Powell.
one
I
twos.
thought their game plan was to check one of their forwards into the channel on the FCC left and then push Mo Farsi, their wingback on that side, really high up the pitch. And that meant that Powell and Kubo had to try to communicate who was going to track, Ramirez or Cucho or Rossi checking into that space, and who was going to push high with Farsi. And I want to break down. They had two really big early chances in the match that some people think FCC were just really quite fortunate to not concede on. And so I want to describe them and get your thoughts on what went wrong, Justin. So the first one came in the 14th minute. The Crew had possession along their back line, and FCC started to press forward. Ramirez dropped into midfield in that half space that I was talking about on the FCC left. And since Kubo was kind of close to him, he presses him. So Kubo at this point is a little inside, more where you'd expect Alvis Powell to be there. But the ball is shifted to the wide left area, the FCC left. So Powell has to push wide out to Farsi, since Kubo was caught inside. But Kubo then does not drop in like a center back, because he and Powell didn't really switch. He kind of starts to leave Ramirez and track back out towards Farsi. So Farsi plays a quick 1-2 with Ramirez and is in behind Alvis Powell in a flash. Cheeto leaves Cucho in the center to come try to stop Mo Farsi. Farsi flicks the ball past Cheeto, and Cucho is just in on goal. Yedlin then leaves Diego Rossi, who's over on the other side of the pitch, to close down Cucho. Cucho slides the ball across to Rossi, and Rossi is at full stretch and can't quite steer it in at that far post. So the question on this chance, Justin, is where do you see those major breakdowns? Was it as simple as that initial line of Kubo and Powell communicating, or do you think that Cheeto or Yedlin did something wrong on that chance?
No, it was the initial play between them. I would say miscommunication between Alves and Kubo. I feel like Kubo probably could have stayed wide and Alves stayed centrally. But they dealt with that situation. They approached it how they thought they would. You get beat on a 1-2, which, Columbus like to play that little ball around the corner. Farsi makes a great run. I would say, though, in this instance, I feel like Powell could have got back to him or even forced him a little wide. I feel like Cheeto could have stayed more centrally, just to try and delay him for as long as he can to get Powell back. And I feel if he does that, he doesn't play this ball. He doesn't beat him with this pass. But I feel he probably thought, I'm going to win this. In that situation, he looks at it, he probably thinks I'm going to win it. He doesn't win it. And then I would say they definitely get fortunate. I feel like Yedlin has to come across there. You have to come across, otherwise he's free on goal. You'll probably cut across Powell. And Rossi's the type of player who, Chico was the type of player who would probably finish that. But I would say Yedlin has to leave Rossi there. I feel like Orishano definitely needs to sprint back. As soon as he sees Yedlin going back, he has to sprint, like burst the gut back, be like, oh. And then, I feel like we are definitely fortunate enough that didn't go in. 100% lucky that didn't go in.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a pick your poison. We're sitting here kind of singing FCC's praises for being really aggressive in the midfield, like stepping to runners. Well, that's what Cheeto did. It's
which
like
is
you said,
great.
he thought he could win the ball.
Mhm.
He got aggressive stepping to Farsi. I wonder in that moment when he steps to Farsi, if Yedlin reads that a little better and steps with him, leaving Cucho Hernandez offside. I watched the replay, and I think even without Yedlin kind of delays his run. And I think Yedlin was trying to pull Cucho off and might have just about done it. It would have been interesting had Rossi been able to steer that in if it would have went to VAR, because it was close. I think Cucho was a hair offside. I wonder if Yedlin could have done more to make sure he was offside in that moment is the other thing. But yeah, that initial communication between Powell and Kubo, I think, was the main culprit. And there's another big chance for the Crew with Powell and Kubo a little bit again. This one was in the 18th minute. This time was a long ball. So Patrick Schulte, the Crew goalkeeper, has the ball. Ramirez drops in on the FCC left, and Powell this time presses forward on him. And Mo Farsi pushes really high, and Kubo drops with him. So when Schulte plays a long ball towards Farsi, Kubo wins it pretty easily. But he's a forward out there, maybe a midfielder if you're being generous, playing wing back. So he wins that header, but just kind of like pops it back into the midfield. And Powell is turned and running back. So it goes over Powell's head right to Ramirez. Now Powell is turning it back again. So he's turning this way and that way, tries to close. Ramirez plays it past Powell to Cucho Hernandez. Powell chases instead of leaving him to Kubo and tracking Ramirez. So now again, you have Kubo and Powell kind of tracking the same runner. Cucho cuts it inside of Powell and just leaves Powell for dead. Kubo is no longer in the play because he was dropping off. So now Powell and Kubo are both kind of wide players. Cucho plays a fantastic pass then between Powell and Cheeto to Ramirez, who is streaking through that midfield unmarked. Roman comes off his line really quickly, gets big, and makes a fantastic save to keep the match scoreless. So my question here, Justin, it took a lot for Crew to get to that point. Is this just a case of Cucho Hernandez being that good, that cut move on Powell, that pass, or did Powell ball chase way too much? Should Kubo have been more aggressive on stepping out on Cucho from the start? Where did you see things go wrong on this chance?
There was one or two instances where either one could have dealt with the situation better, but I would just have to say, sometimes you just have to. We don't like to say applaud Columbus, obviously, because it's our rivals, but I think in this instance, you just have to applaud the play from Columbus. I mean, if Lucho does that and we score, we're saying what a pass. For me, coach, this is an unbelievable pass. I mean, from the outside of his foot for the run, I don't think even Chico couldn't even Cheeto could even get that. He wasn't even looking to see if he was going to play that. He had his man. I didn't even see that pass. Powell couldn't get there. Like, it was just an inch perfect pass. Yes, if you go back to the beginning, there's miscommunication, we would say, between Powell and Kubo, but they both recovered into a position where they're fine. They're set. I would say the back five, they're set in formation. They're set in the right places. It's just an unbelievable pass. But in the same instance, when your defense gets broken, who do you need to be there to make big saves? It's the goalkeeper. So Celentano, what a big save. What a moment he needed to produce right in that moment, because, if they go one up, they're going to get, full of confidence. They're going to be high on emotions. They're going to be, buzzing that they've just scored. But what a save and what a turnaround. And it was an unbelievable save, but you have to applaud the pass sometimes.
I kind of agree, Justin. I don't think this was a huge defensive breakdown. I think there's little, as a coach, I'm picking out, you're picking out as an analyst and as a coach. Yeah, getting those badges. You're picking out the things that could be better, because that's what we do. But really, when you look at the play, in the end, when Cucho makes that pass, Powell is just about where he should be. Kubo is just about where he should be, right? You wish that maybe the pressure on Cucho was a little bit better, so the pass wasn't so easy to pick. I say easy because it was a very difficult pass, but he had the space to do it. But really, it was just a fantastic play by Crew. And like you said, fantastic play by Roman. The Crew did have one other really clear-cut chance, but this was in the second half, in the 62nd minute. And it was just Farsi running behind Kubo on a long ball. And he crossed for Cucho Hernandez, who's headed over the bar. And now it wasn't called offside. So it shows up in the stats as a big chance, and it makes it look like, oh, Columbus had the better of the chances. But Farsi, I think, was a full yard or so offside. So I'm pretty confident had Cucho buried that, it would have been called back. But Justin, that's it. There were like a handful of probably not even quite half chances other than those three, like some shots that were blocked, some shots from really narrow angles. So let's ask this question all. You have three big chances. One, I think, was definitely offside. Another one was quite possibly offside. And then you had just an unbelievable pass by Cucho Hernandez. But those three big chances show like, wow, Roman had to make big saves or whatever. Did the back line, that makeshift back line, get lucky? Or did they play really, really well on the night? Or was it a bit of both?
I thought they played well on the night. Yes, they got lucky on one chance that, looking at the way Columbus played, they should have scored. Would it have been offside? We don't know. But for majority of the game, and if you limit a team like Columbus for their attacking threat and their forward line, to limit them to the amount of chances they had, if you look at maybe one or two's offside, you must have to applaud the not only the team but the defense. Everyone looked on paper and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible." But to limit them to the amount of shots that they had, only a few clear-cut chances. Hats off to the defense. I will take that, especially against Columbus. Coach, I'll take that. I'll take that for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know how you feel about it, but I would take it.
I will take it as well. I was thrilled with that 0-0 loss, or 0-0 draw. I mean, honestly, I know it's weird. Yeah, it's weird to applaud a 0-0 draw at home to anyone if you want to be the best team in the league. But with two defensive starters out with yellow card accumulation, with Lucho it being his first match back fully fit after playing
he wasn't 100%,
here and there in the League's Cup. I think it, and just working Niko Gioacchini into the mix, I just think it was a really good result overall. What I want to talk about next, Justin, is the offense. But first, I want to let the listeners know that our show is also sponsored by Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. In fact, they have helped some of our local MLS Next, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. I also want to take the opportunity here to let you all know what I've been drinking this week. This 0-0 draw was made a little bit more exciting for me thanks to a creme de la creme out of Evil Twin Brewing. It's a really nice hazy IPA, not overly citrus, nice soft feel on the palate with some gentle tropical notes and a decent dank bitterness on the finish. I gave it a 4 out of 5. If you want to talk to me about beer or soccer, you can get in touch with me on the socials at FC Cincy Tac Talk. If you want to talk to Justin about soccer or soccer, you can get in touch with him on the socials at Justin Hoyte 32. If you have a question or comment, you can always get at us there or send us a note to feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Justin, our next topic here comes from Jared Red Squad, who wants us to break down why the FCC midfield seemed iffy on being able to create things against the Crew, and how can FCC really, what Jared says, is pour gas on in the attacking third. So let's talk about what FCC were trying to do offensively and why they couldn't really generate anything all night. The first thing I want to talk about in that regard is really the Crew, because I think one thing that was really noticeable was, for being, the darlings of MLS, the Crew really deferred to FCC in a lot of ways. For instance, they didn't press in their normal way. They had Nagbe sit on Lucho all night. Sometimes it was Matan, but mostly Nagbe would just drop on Lucho out of possession and force FCC to find alternate ways of moving the ball up the field. And then, Justin, in the past, what we've seen in those situations is the FCC is really willing to just give it to a wing back, and then the Crew or whoever the opponent is can just force that ball to the wide areas and then swarm them in what I call like a pressure pocket. You make it seem like the wide area is open. As soon as the ball goes there, you collapse that pocket. It's a pressure pocket. In this match, I noticed a difference. they kept using Obi and Buka even when they were under a ton of pressure in the midfield as a pivot point, especially since Nagbe was dropped off. They could do that. And then they could either turn and play up, or often they would play it wide from there, but that would keep that the pressure pocket from forming. It would freeze that Columbus press. The problem, though, Justin, is even though the midfield was really effective moving the ball all night, side to side, and breaking that press and not let Columbus really win on that initial ball, once they got into the attacking third, without Lucho to get on the ball constantly, they really didn't find many options. There wasn't very much joy for them there, Justin, right?
No, there wasn't. You was right. You saw Nagby just sat in a certain pocket, sat around Lucho, made sure he wasn't able to get the ball. And if you look at it, coach, I feel like sometimes in the game, I was listening to the commentary as well, you had to get Lucho on the ball to create things because he creates something out of nothing. You look at Hernandez for um, Columbus, he was dropping deep because he couldn't get on the ball for higher up. So when Lucho was able to get the ball, he had to drop deep away from Nagby because Nagby was sitting there and Cincinnati couldn't play. Yes, it was great that the two midfielders, Buka or Obi, was able to get on the ball, but they wasn't able to then play forward penetrating passes, get the ball wide. Or Oshano was only able to do little bits and pieces. Kubo wasn't able to be the type of player he was because he was always chasing Farsi back. So we missed that little spark, that little, getting to the final third. If Lucho's not there, you need something different. You need to be able to create something out of nothing. And if Lucho can't do it, we need to find another alternative. What is that alternative, coach? We have to know, because teams looking at it now, if they say we're sitting Mark Lucho in a certain area, they can't play, let the two midfielders have the ball. We now need to see Buka or Obi try and drive forward with the ball, make penetrating passes. Okay, if you make a bad pass, that's fine. But as long as you try it, that will upset and disrupt the defensive unit of the opponent team.
Yeah, and the little times that we saw FCC try something a little different, they would create what looked like was going to be a chance, but then it almost never ended up being a chance because that final ball wasn't quite right. Like in the 25th minute, Obi makes a really nice pass from right to left to put Kubo in a 1v1 situation with Mo Farsi. Kubo comes in onto his right and crosses to the back post, but the ball's just over Niko Gioacchini's head and doesn't quite fall for Orishano. So Orishano tries to direct it back across, ends up right with Schulte. In the 36th minute, Yedlin steps in and picks off a pass and sends Luka running in transition because Luka had pinched in towards the middle, and he has Big Kev and Lucho to his left, and instead he tries to cut the ball back towards the right to Niko Gioacchini and turns it over. In the 50th minute, there was awesome hold up where we used Big Kev as a target, and he held the defender off turn, and again, Luca Orishano shooting that gap coming from the outside, running towards the middle, gets the ball to Luca. Luca tries to play the ball then to the left on the diagonal to Niko, but the defender gets a sliding touch. If that ball's through, Niko is in on goal. Those are just some of the plays. There's another play I want to talk about because this might have been the best chance of this part. On the 44th minute, Cheeto, we talked about something different, and you have to mix in some long balls every time. Talk about different. Cheeto plays a lofted ball, long ball towards Lucho, and Lucho flicks it on and then takes off down the field.
I couldn't believe that.
Gioacchini wins the second ball, flicks it towards Big Kev, who then loops it into Lucho's path first time. And Lucho, that's the one where he finished the chance. But because he had taken off from so deep and didn't do the thing that strikers know how to do, just delay their run slightly, he was a half step offside, and it was a good call. But Justin, that's the common thread, right? They're doing a ton of things right when they're trying these different things, but they just can't get that final ball right or that final run right. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, coach. A number of reasons. I think it's rhythm, consistency, getting in them situations week in, week out. Obviously, Lucho's still coming back. He's still not. I would say he's 100%, but he's still not. I would say in the match rhythm as he has been. Last season he hardly missed a match. This season's been out for a little while, so it's still going to take a little while. But it's great to see that sometimes they went a bit longer and they was able to Okay, it was offside, but you're able to create something different and cause, Columbus, you know, give Columbus something else to think about in that instance. And that's another reason why we saw, sorry, Lucho was able to get away from Nagby, and look what happened, created a chance.
Yeah.
So we just needed to see that more, I think, in this game. But with the defense of Columbus, they really do pay attention to Lucho, like a lot of the teams are going to do moving
Yeah, you
forward.
talked about rhythm, Justin. When you have to change up your main offense the way you play because the other team has in some ways deferred to you to take away what you do best, it is important that everybody is on the same page and is in rhythm. Yet, I heard on Extra Time Radio, the podcast, that the FCC comms team put out a stat that Justin Pat Noonan has not started the same 11 players in the same 11 positions a single time this year. There's not two starting lineups in this whole year that
Oh,
you can
really?
put next to each other
Wow.
that are identical. Either there's different personnel or maybe the same personnel, like maybe Kubo is out there in both, but he's a midfielder in one, he's a wing back in the other, which is, changing that changes the relationships. So I think I was heartened to see them use Big Kev as a hold-up striker so often. I was heartened to see them trying to get Niko in behind with a couple slot passes. But sometimes you just can't be in that rhythm when you aren't playing together. So the question is there's like 7 games left in the regular season or something. Justin, you've done this. You've tried to work new players into your team mid-season. You've been in part of a locker room where an injured guy comes back or a guy gets injured. Is there enough time to get these guys clicking all on the same page heading into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's great time, and I think what's a good thing about it. Yes, okay, you look at the defense, and they're still, their main players are out. And we can say it. There's new players that have come in, which are going to settle in. And I would say having Lucho coming back at the right time, some of the forwards coming back at the right time from injury and starting to get minutes. We've got a new signing who's a striker. You've got to be careful who's playing now. I would say it's the right time that the players are starting to come back because you've got 7 games thinking, right, we've made the playoffs, right? We've got 7 games to keep healthy, to gain rhythm, to gain that consistency, to gain that understanding, to gain that. We've changed the 11 every time. Everyone's played in different positions. Now you possibly got a situation where you could play a set team for the next 8, 9, 10 games leading up to the final. If injuries, don't happen the team, but that's where you gain consistency. That's where you gain the rhythm. That's a crazy stat that you just told me, but that's the only way they're going to gain rhythm and consistency. Especially, you're going to need that leading into the playoffs because I feel if you haven't got the rhythm and the consistency and the understanding leading into the playoffs, coach, it's going to be tough because some of these teams are playoff teams. They know how to do it. They've been there. Yes, Cincinnati are getting to be a playoff teams, but I feel when you get into the playoffs, I feel teams have a set 11 and they're just drilled 11 players that are drilled just for playoffs. And that's how I see the MLS.
The Columbus
Cincinnati
Crew
are getting there, but they're not there just yet. Yeah, the Columbus Crew.
The Crew, they use a very small number of players. Yeah, they might rotate in like Matan, but it's like or Ramirez, but mostly it's like 14 guys that start all of their matches. And you know what, Justin, gives me a lot of heart in this is just like we talked about with like having to play so many defenders out of position, what does it allow you to do? Get on the front foot. Well, when things aren't clicking for you offensively with the passing and the patterns of play and the movement, you know what you can do? You can create defensively. And we talked about how good the FCC press was defensively. Well, they also generated some really good chances. And the 26th minute. Yeah. In the 26th minute, Big Kev nicks the ball on the press and Poole then gets in on goal. He pulls his shot and sends it wide of the far post from the top of the box. And, Schulte was stepped out because Crew were in possession. So I wonder if he could have beat him at the near post there. In the 43rd minute, Kubo steps into midfield and deflects a Ramirez pass, and it ends up right with Niko Gioacchini. And this is a huge transition opportunity because it is 3v1 with Niko on the ball, dribbling down the middle. He has Big Kev to his right and Kubo to his left. And he doesn't shoot. He takes an extra touch. He doesn't pass. And then the recovering defender, who I think was Christian Ramirez, takes the shot. And then the best chance of the night, Justin, it should have been anyway. In the 51st minute, FCC is out and pressing. Patrick Schulte gets the ball and Lucho presses. He pings the ball right off of Lucho at the edge of the box. Lucho is able to control it, and he's just staring at the goal and Schulte. The angle isn't great, but Lucho never passes that ball. But he pulls it back and passes to Big Kev about the penalty spot, sets it on a platter for Kev to just run and strike through the ball. And instead, he refuses to use his right foot. He will not do it, tries to shiv it to his left. And then his shot is blocked by a defender who is like sitting back by the goal. And Justin, that's it. But those chances off the press were good. And it's like, I don't know what more. You have Niko Gioacchini, who probably isn't high on confidence, who probably should pass the ball. You have Big Kev, who's a young player who doesn't want to miss that chance, so doesn't want to take it with his weaker foot. As a player in the locker room, what are you talking to these guys? Is it just all positive reinforcement, like keep at it, we'll get one? Or is it like, bro, use your right foot? Or bro, pass the ball.
It's positive. Positive criticism. Why I say that is because you're getting opportunities. It's great that you're getting opportunities. Keep doing that, but sometimes pass. Lucho, I think in a lot of instances there, I'm surprised he actually passed. Normally he would go 1v1 and score. So I was actually surprised. Okay, the angle was tough, but I'm actually surprised he actually did pass. Big Kev needs to trust his right foot. Just trust it. How he does that is to do that more in training. Just trust your right foot. Get in it, one touch, strike, even if it's just him, to gain that consistency, to gain that, to gain that confidence to be like, right, I can do it. If it comes to me again, I'm going to try it. But he's a left-footed player. He thought, let me try and do it and whip it with my left foot. It's not going to work. But like I say, Coach, I would say it's positive criticism. Why? It's because it's a positive that we're getting into these situations. It's just that we've not made the right decisions at that moment in time.
Yeah. Justin, Jose Guerra got in touch and said in the first half, it looked like FCC were trying to really play through zone 14, but narrowly missing, and wanted to know if they changed that tactic for the second half or if the Crew adjusted. And the reason why I brought this up is because I thought FCC had some decent action in the first half, trying to do that familiar pattern that we have grown to kind of know and mostly love, where they isolate one of their dribblers, mostly Lucho Acosta, in a wide area, have them run 1v1 towards zone 14 and look to combine. But the problem is those dribblers, Lucho, Luca, didn't have success beating their man towards zone 14 effort. FCC was only 8 for 23 on dribbles. Lucho was 0 for 4, and Luca Orashano was 3 for 7. Justin, when you watch this match, do you think the Crew defense was just really good in 1v1 situations? Or did it look like Lucho and Luca, and maybe to a lesser extent, Kubo and some of those other guys just didn't have the juice for whatever to beat the defenders?
Yeah, I just didn't think there was, I would say, good on the night. I'd say good on the night because we know what they're capable of. They wasn't good on the night to be able to create more chances and to get the goal. I don't want to credit Columbus's defense. I just want to put it down to, the attacking players just didn't have what was needed. I would say what was needed to get the victory. But let's hope if they get them in the playoffs, they'll have more than enough.
I was tweeting during the match, Justin, for Luca Orashano specifically. I thought Max Arfston, the Columbus left back, I think it made it easy for him. Luca Orashano is a heavily left-footed player. When you are a left-footed player playing inverted, so you're playing on the right, all Max Arfston did was say, I will give you the whole touchline. You beat me to the right all that you want. I'm not letting you come inside. I wonder from a defender, how much easier is that than guarding a player who is on their dominant side? And the reason why I ask is it feels to me as a defender, it's a lot harder of a decision to sell out to block the line and let a player dribble to the middle, even if it's on their dominant foot, than it is to sell out to block the middle and just force them onto their weaker foot down the line. That just seems like double what you want to do. Force them wide and onto their weaker foot. I thought Pat Noonan should have flipped Luka Gioacchini to the other side. As a defender, does your job get a lot easier, or is it like you really can't sell out either way? Because a player like Luka Gioacchini, as left-footed as we feel like he is, can still get onto his right foot and make bad things happen. What is it like as a defender to do one or the other?
It's tough to make that decision on who you're playing against, what they're good at. If someone's good at coming in on side and his left foot, that's great. But someone who can go on the outside as well, that's headache. But I would say I would probably prefer to go against someone who likes to come in on their left foot more often. Why? It's probably because it's easier, because there's more bodies there. It's more natural for me to say, right, I'll go inside, that's fine. Whereas if someone wants to keep going on the outside, keep going down the line, keep driving down the line, that's you 1v1, that's you tracking back, running backwards, jockeying backwards, trying to block the line, block the line. And I feel like it's just, you feel more isolated that way. When someone keeps wanting to drive inside, you're like, oh, that's fine. That's in the middle of the field. That's more my teammates. That's perfect for me.
Interesting. So the opposite of what I was saying. So but maybe that's what Pat.
I prefer you going inside.
On the right. Mm-hmm. No, that's good. Because as a player, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking as a coach, what I'm trying to teach my players to do. But it makes sense also that you force players into your help, which if you don't have help down the line, it's a harder decision to do. So that's a good call there. In terms of tactical changes, Justin, I thought what was interesting in the second half is I mentioned the crew deferring to FC Cincinnati in terms of how they were marking Lucho. I thought in the second half, whenever FCC had solid possession in the final third, the Columbus Crew brought all 10 players back to defend and really crowded the box in zone 14. I was shocked with how deep they were defending and how often when FCC had the ball in the final third, I could pause it and count all 10 outfield players in my screen in the defensive third, Justin.
And that's credit to Cincinnati for the way they're able to play, and you know, Columbus have seen that as a strength for Cincinnati and been like, how do we now stop Cincinnati creating chances in them areas? Because you've seen Lucho get in them certain areas and create stuff. You've seen Kubo be able to get in them little areas, create stuff, or Rashano get in them areas and create stuff. And Columbus were like, right, we're going to pack the box, we're going to defend, and we're not going to let you in. And, you know, they was able to do it. But now that's credit to Cincinnati, because Columbus have seen that as their major strength and been like, right, we need to stop that. Otherwise, you know, we're going to lose here.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So to Jose's question, I think the tactical change occurred on Columbus's side, really packing the middle and basically saying FC Cincinnati doesn't want to cross the ball. We've seen that. So let's, you know, make that the only way to beat us. And we saw FC Cincinnati didn't really go to try to cross the ball, which isn't really their game. They had a few moments. But I thought that what FCC did effectively through that is still created opportunities. A bunch of the opportunities that I mentioned in the first half of the show were FC Cincinnati getting out in transition quickly before Columbus could get back and using Big Kev as a target player and things like that. All right, Justin, I want to get to the mailbag, but before we do that, I want to thank all of our incredible listeners and supporters. Thank you for downloading today's episode or watching the YouTube, however you consume this. Thanks for doing it, and please continue to do so. Make sure you're subscribed to your platform of choice. Make sure you spread the word, tell a friend. And if you would do us a huge favor, you can go rate and review the show on YouTube, on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/coach Apple Podcasts. And you can also become a supporter of Cincinnati Soccer Talk over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. As always, with this show, if you have questions for us about tactics or coaching, if you want to get Justin's player perspective as a former professional, you can always get at us on social media or drop us a note in the mailbag. Speaking of the mailbag, Justin, our first question comes from the aforementioned Jose, who wants to know if Pat Noonan waited too long to make changes. The guys seem to be dragging in the last 20 minutes. So, Justin, we saw Sergio Santos, interestingly, for Kevin Kelsey at the 71-minute mark. I thought that was interesting because Kelsey was really good again in this match. He needs to learn how to use his right foot, like we talked about, but he was really good in hold-up play, and that was one of the ways FCC was getting out in transition so quickly. From there were no changes until the 84-minute mark when Assad came on for Orishano. With FCC generating so many chances off of the press, do you think they waited too long to make those changes to keep that press high? Because it really looks like it slowed down and dropped off about the 75-minute mark, and they could have used an influx of energy.
I feel it was made, the substitutions were made at the right time, just because sometimes if you make too many substitutions too early, it upsets the rhythm, it upsets the defensive shape, it upsets the attacking play. So I feel sometimes, although we might want substitutions, I feel like sometimes you make the substitutions at the wrong time could cost you the game. So I felt that Noonan made the right substitutions at the right time during the game just to see this game out. I would say that I think he made that right. Yes, players were tired, but I still felt they was able to do the job that was needed in that moment. I just didn't want them to make a substitution that was going to cost the game, because we make a substitution, then all of us fans, coach, what would we say? Why did he make that substitution? Why did he make that change? He should have left it. That's us as fans. He doesn't make the substitution. Everyone says they're tired. They're looking at this. Why didn't they make the substitution? But because we're fans and we watch the games and we want the team to win, we are like, well, why didn't he do it to make the substitutions to win the game? But if we would have made the substitutions and they would have lost, we would have gone mad.
Yeah. Well, listen, Justin, I am really usually a critic of Pat Noonan for not subbing early enough, but I actually agree with you completely here for that exact reason. The defense was solid. They were playing well. The offense is what needed help.
You can't upset
and I don't know who you were going to bring in. Does anybody really feel like bringing Corey Baird in for Niko Gioacchini, for bringing Dado Valenzuela on for Lucho Acosta? Does anybody really think that that's going to really make it more likely for FCC to score? The one thing I will say is in terms of keeping Columbus from scoring, a lot of the joy they started to have down the stretch was Lucho Acosta turning the ball over. And I have to imagine he was tired after not playing so much.
Tired. Yeah, 100%.
So hard to make that change. So I guess overall, I would give Noonan a pass. Justin, the next question comes from Brett Sova, who wants our thoughts on Niko, because he says it's split online. Brett thinks he had a great showing against Columbus and wants to know how we would grade his performance. Justin, just gut reaction. You watched the game. What are your thoughts on Niko Gioacchini's performance in this one?
I would say it's okay. But the only thing is now I need to say he's more than okay. I need to say he's creating chances for himself. He's creating chances for others. In the attacking third, he needs to, I don't know, I would say just show a bit more. In showing a bit more, I'm like, creating chances, coach. Show a bit more. Right, this is what I can do. This is what I can bring to the team. If we put, tell the team, if you want the crosses in the ball, tell them put the crosses in the ball and I'll be in the box.
Yeah.
But I would say it's an okay performance. It's an okay. But we want to be seeing, right, this is great. This is great from him. This is what he's going to bring to the team. This is what he can do. This is outstanding from him. Like we need to see chances. We need to see shots, because when we're talking about players, if Lucho isn't playing or they're marking Lucho, now who's going to be the creative player? Okay, if that's not his game, then that's not his game. But we still need to see what actually he will bring to this game to make us win games if Lucho or someone else is not able to do it.
Yeah, you're dead on.
How do you see it as a coach?
It depends on the bar you set for Niko. If you say as a Corey Baird alternative, like he came into the lineup instead of Corey Baird, I thought he was great as a Corey Baird alternative. received 5 progressive passes, which was second on the team, was active in the press, which was the best part of FCC's game. He had a 21% loss ratio, which means he lost the ball on 21% of his touches, which is pretty good for a forward. For reference, Cucho Hernandez, who everybody loves, had a 40% loss ratio. Big Kev had a 33% loss ratio. So he was good in that role. And not scoring or creating goals or shots for others. He had 1 shot creating action. He had 2 shots himself, but neither were on frame. So if you want him to replace Corey Baird's production, which is no goals, but a lot of other good stuff, then I thought Niko was great. If you want him to add to this attack, I think he's not doing well enough yet, but that's not to fault him necessarily because he just showed up. I think this was his first match that he had to start with Lucho, who is going to be the guy who gives him most of his goals, right? And I said it last week, Justin, if you think Niko Gioacchini is going to be a starter in the playoffs to give you the best chance to win, then you start him now and you play him as many minutes as possible to get his fitness up, to get that rhythm up, and you take your lumps now in terms of whether he is playing well and you lose or win games based on that, because it's all about the playoffs. It's all about the end of the season. Justin, the team has a midweek game today. Talk about really quick before we get out of here, as a player moving from a Saturday at home to playing on the road on Wednesday. What's your week like? How's that feel?
My gosh, first of all, I didn't even know there was a midweek game, so that would have been a surprise to me if I was a player. No, your focus is recovery, rest, recover, get ready for the next game, next opponent. You want them to come thick and fast. You want to get to the playoffs, and you just want to know who you're playing against and where you're playing and who you're against. Who's your opponent? Am I going to get the better of him? What's his strengths? What's his weaknesses? And how are we going to win this game? And how are we going to get that winning mentality and that winning focus now for the remainder of the games leading into the playoffs? Because as we know, we've qualified for the playoffs, but now everything is like, right, let's get the highest seed possible. After that, it's all focused onto the playoffs. So let's take one game at a time. Midweek games are they're fun games.
Same with you and I. We're taking one show at a time. We're getting focused for this playoff run, Justin, and we are doing it well. Thanks for doing it, my friend.
I'm pumped for it. I'm pumped. Anytime, coach, anytime. I'm pumped for it. Let's go.
And that is it for this episode of Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. If you want to do us a huge favor, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, to the YouTube channel, and head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/Coach Apple Podcasts to rate and review the show. Other than that, thank you for listening. Thanks for spreading the word. And thanks to my co-host, Justin Hoyte. I had fun today, and I'm hoping you did too. This is Coach Brad Gough reminding you that soccer is a privilege. So whether you're watching, coaching, or playing, don't forget to smile.